continuing from last session, first of all, I tell you that don't get confused between the materials and whether object is living or it's dead. It's not like that. We have discussed the materials derived from living species or non-living things. That is a different thing. But when we talk about objects, when you describing your objects and the discussion later on we had, all of you have attachment with that object, whether it is emotional attachment or whether there are memories, certain memories or something, and you are doing conversation with that object. So in a way, that is a living object. Okay. Now we will move further. Like we are living species, no? Now, tell me, when you migrate from one place to another place, suppose, let's consider you are migrating from cold and dry place to high humid and hot place. What you experience generally?
Increase in temperature.
Increase in temperature, increase in humidity, and what you feel because of that fluctuation. There is a lot of fluctuation. You know, you are in cold area, you are habitual to that cold weather, and suddenly you move to hot weather, or vice versa. But common thing is there is a lot of up and down in temperature and humidity. What you feel? Did you get familiarized that different weather immediately, or you take time?
We take time.
You take time.
Our body will take time to adjust with that temperature.
Yes, our body will get time to adjust that temperature and relative humidity. You know, so that means in our condition, we need time to get acclimatized with different weathering conditions, isn't it? Similar way these objects behave, these materials behave. They also didn't like the fluctuation in temperature and humidity. Now, to understand this phenomena, I will give you very simple example, which all of you must have been experienced. Very simple example. At your home, the doors, your home doors are made up of what material?
Wood.
Wood. Now, in monsoon, those living in heavy monsoon region, what you experience with that wooden doors?
They get stuck.
They get what?
They get stuck.
They get jammed.
Yes.
We experience difficulty to open the door, right? So why is it? Why it happens? In summer, your wooden door is free to open and close. But suddenly after starting monsoon, it gets jammed. And we face difficulty to open it. ऐसे क्यों होता है?
In monsoons, the woods absorb moisture and it gets
absolutely correct.
Bigger or something. Yeah.
Absolutely. The wood absorbs the moisture from the air. There is water content in the air, which we called as humidity. And relative humidity, because it's always relative to temperature. So that water content present in the air would absorb that moisture, and what happens because of absorbing of that moisture would get
Expands.
Right? So its dimensions get increased, its length, its width, its height. get increased, and because of the expansion of wood, the door gets jammed. You understood? All of you understood?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Now, for some time, let's go back to our conversation in last session. Wood is derived from living material. Wood is tree, living species. So, it's a similar behavior, like because of the moisture, wood get expand, and when this moisture content decreases, again wood get
It contracts.
contract, and in winter again our door will get free. You can easily open it and close it, right? All of you have experienced this. So similarly, let's say the other materials derived from living species like paper, textile, ivory, bone, then wood. We talked about wood. Then palm leaf, birch bark. All these material have same behavior, same pattern of behavior. They are not sensitive to temperature, but they are sensitive to relative humidity. As relative humidity increases, they expands. As relative humidity decreases, they contracts. So what is happening with every cycle, every monsoon cycle, or with every cycle, every fluctuation in relative humidity, they are expanding and they are contracting. So there is dimensional changes in this material. You see, on the contrary, the materials derived from non-living things like metal, stone, glass, jade, semi-precious stone, precious stones, then clay, whether it is baked clay or non-baked clay or stucco, these materials doesn't behave like this. They are more sensitive to temperature. They are not sensitive to relative humidity as other materials. So the expansion and contraction of these materials is much lesser, much lesser than the textiles, wood, paper, ivory, and these things. You got my point? Now, how does it affect on the age of these objects? Let's see that now. Basically, for us, it is now simple that organic material like textile, wood, paper, ivory, these are sensitive to relative humidity, whether as stone, metal, glass, jade, clay, these are relatively very less sensitive to relative humidity. So the temperature and relative, because of temperature and relative humidity, they expands and contracts and they have dimensional changes. Okay, but what happens? So before going to that part, means ultimate, now you must have a clue that we are going to the deterioration of these objects. Means let's consider us. You said that we need some time to acclimatize with different climatic conditions. Otherwise, what happened? Suppose the human beings with low humidity, they can affected by this fluctuation in temperature, this temperature and relative humidity, and they can get ill. They have cough, they have cold, they can have fever. So like this, these objects also have problems. Before going to that, I want to show you some museum objects. So let's start from the top left corner. What that object is? Can you recognize, or can you Have you seen these kind of objects before?
Is it a pot?
Looks
Yes.
like something
A clay pot?
to store water or something like that.
Clay pot to store water. Okay. Very good guess. Can you guess the period? It's a pot, it's a clay pot, it's a baked clay pot. It to store water or more than water to store grains. It's from Harappan civilization or Indus Valley civilization. Okay. So we have seen one object of baked clay. Then in semi top row, second object, you have to identify the material. I'm not going to now ask you about the period, but if you can guess about its region, then it will be very nice. If you have seen in the museum in past similar kind of object, similar kind of stylization, then it will be a good thing. So any guesses about
Brass?
Huh?
Is it brass?
Brass. Okay. So brass, what is brass? Stone or clay? Brass is a stone or clay? Why there is a big question on on your faces? It's a simple answer, no? Brass is clay or stone?
It is neither.
Huh?
Metal stone.
Yeah, it is metal. Correct. It is metal. So why are you saying it is brass? It is metal. But why? Then why are you not saying other metals? Why not? Why haven't you guessed about it is iron or it is copper or it is lead? Why not it is zinc? Why precisely you are
I
saying
guess it was brass because I know in old civilizations or in old times they used brass for idols.
Okay, you know that in old civilization they were using brass or irons, but before copper, there was copper age also. Anyway, is it because its color is yellow and that is why you are saying it's brass and not iron? And you know the iron is reddish color, rusted iron is look like reddish color or gray, and brass is yellow, copper vessels are look like red.
Yeah, with the color, I guess,
that.
because it was yellowish gold with
Yeah.
brass type of color.
Means you are guessing the material, and while guessing it subconsciously you are thinking of various things, but you are not realizing it, and after some time you realized it because of its color, because there are certain things like relief in making of use of embossing using that object. Maybe you have recollected in your mind subconsciously, and then you guess it is metal and particularly brass. Now with moving forward with its color, I will give you small very interesting information. It is gilded object, it is copper object, and the its yellow appearance is because of the gold gilding on the surface. Now, interesting thing is this object is from Himalayan region, and in Himalayan region they apply amalgam of mercury and gold on the surface of the copper, and then they place this object in the furnace, and in high temperature mercury gets sublimized and gold layer retains on the surface, and then we see this as a final product, as its visual appearance is it's like that. So mercury gilding is a unique identification methodology from the Himalayan region. So it is now clear that it, and why copper and why not brass or why not bronze or iron? Because it is high embossed metal, and to do high embossing, you know what is embossing is? You know or you don't know? What is embossing?
We don't know, sir.
Okay, you don't know. So with the tools, when we create concaves or convex planes in the metal sheet, it is called embossing. And to achieve that, this kind of embossing, the physical property in the metal is required, that metal sheet should have softness to create that embossing. And because of that, particularly, precisely, copper sheet is used for this, to create this kind of objects. And we talked about the gold gilding on it, which is based on mercury amalgam. Okay, so let's move on. Third objects. What is your guess about third object?
Is it a king on a horse, like from Mughal period?
Okay, so you describe the image, and you are saying that it is Mughal period. Okay.
I'm
But-
not sure. I just guess.
Yeah, okay. So, but what is it? It is a sculpture, or it is a painting, or it is a manuscript, or it is a book?
Painting.
Painting. Painting. Which type of painting can you guess? Have you seen Indian miniature paintings? No? None of you have seen Indian miniature paintings?
Yes, sir. In history textbooks, it used to be there.
Okay, okay. So, Liz, do you know how it's made of? Means it's a pigment, right? It's a paint. You're seeing red, yellow, green, blue, white paints on the surface. But can you guess the support? Is it on cloth? Is it on paper? Is it on stone? Is it on copper sheet?
Sir,
You do paintings, no? You do acrylics and poster color on paper.
Sir, is it on wood?
Sorry,
Sir, is it on wood?
this is on wood. Okay, no, this is on paper. Now, Indian miniature painters, this particular style, our Indian miniature paintings are made on papers. So what they used to do, they used to do wasli. Now what is wasli? Wasli is they paste several layers of paper on each other. Let's say there are 3 to 7 to multiple layers of papers on each other. Then with a stone, smooth stone, they do burnishing of that paper. Then they apply ground on it, means white ground layer on it, white paint on it, and then they do drawing on with pencil, and finally they start painting on it. Okay, so this is a methodology of Indian miniature paintings. What you need to keep in mind that now suddenly the material is changed, baked clay to metal to paper, and that means their behavior is going to change. Okay, so in one hand you have to be alert with these changes in material, and then we see the behavior. What is fourth object? Can you guess by looking at it?
A stone
rock.
and something is
No.
written on that rock. Something
Stone, correct. And something is,
written, printed.
yeah, okay. So I tell you information about this object. This is from Ashokan period. This is earliest earliest writings we found about our culture from Ashokan edict. And why the metal on top is in past, before 100 years, this this inscription on stone, the stone got break and it was in two parts, and to conserve it, there is a metal strip around it, and which is on top. You can see the holding, the metal strip is holding with nut and bolt. So basically this is earliest manuscript from Ashokan edict what we have. Okay, and this, and very interesting inscription on this stone we found is, the inscription says that how the females in that period was, how they were doing their makeup, what were the ornaments they are wearing. This inscription is there on this stone. Okay, but material what? Again stone, baked clay to metal to paper, now stone. Now top right corner, it's is a painting by very renowned artist from contemporary to Raja Ravi Verma. His name is Pestanji Bommanji, and it's portrait of lady. And I will not ask you to guess because I know now that it is difficult to you. So let's go ahead. So it is oil paint on canvas. What is the difference in material between the miniature, Indian miniature painting, and this painting is, Indian miniature painting is a paint, tempera paints, natural pigments on paper, and here it is oil pigments, means against can be a natural pigments or chemically produced pigments, but their binder is oil. So oil based pigments. Here it's water based pigments in miniature painting, whereas here is oil based pigments on canvas. Okay, you have to remember this. The difference between two things is support is paper, here support is textile. Both are derived from living species. That means their behavior with the temperature and relative humidity is going to be similar. Only difference is with the pigment layer. With miniature painting, it is water-based pigments, and here in canvas painting, it is oil-based pigments. You will remember this. You understood this? It is not very difficult, but yeah, I can understand. All of a sudden, you are hearing a lot of information, and because of which it may be difficult for you to digest or to remember all this information. But I am trying to simplify it as much as possible. Now, the sixth object in the first column, second, that is Jain Mandapa. It is Jain Mandapa. It is related to Jainism. So there is there is a diagram of city, and there are various levels. Each circle represent with the layers in the city. So, and that connects with the philosophy of Jainism. And again, it's water-based tempera paint on cloth. Now, the difference between cloth used in oil painting and this painting is little bit different, and that is in oil paintings where many a times the cloth canvas is used, that is a thick cloth, or jute is used, that is a very thick cloth, or linen is used, that is again a thick cloth, and can be a medium grain, smooth grain, or heavy grain canvas. But here in paintings, Indian paintings on cloth, not like miniature paintings. Miniature paintings are on paper, but Indian paintings on cloth, like these Jain Patachitras, or you must have seen Pichwais, or in Tanjore, in South India, in Tanjore range, in Tanjore. What is Tanjore paintings made up of? On the wooden plank, they paste this thin cloth, then they apply gesso on it, that is ground layer, to prepare that cloth, and on that they start molding, and then they fix mirror and glass beads or semi-precious stones on it, and then they paint and they do gilding on it, and finally they do outlining work. So then we go to north region, Himalayan region, we found tankhas, Tibetan paintings, similarly made up of water-based tempera paints on thin cloth. So what you will remember, what you have to remember is tankhas, Pichwais, Jain Patachitras, Tanjores, all are oil-based tempera paints on thin cloth. Okay. Now, what is the next object besides that Jain Patachitra is? Again, you have already guessed the Ashokan edit, then you must be guess this object also, the material of this object. Can you guess it? And to be quicker, I will suggest guess the object, that one, and that dancing figure also.
Sir, I guess the dancing figure one is black granite.
What is it?
The dancing figure is polished black granite.
Polished lacquer granite means you are saying it's stone. Okay, any
Yeah.
other?
I want to ask you something related to that.
Ayati?
You said it's in the sixth image. So what is written in? Is something written, or is it a drawing?
Yeah, it's a combination of inscription. It's a combination of means inscriptions means there are letters, there are symbols, and there are some kinds of diagrams. It's a combination.
Okay, sir.
And there are some images also related to our life. Means there are fish, there can be elephant, there can be means animals, fish, birds.
Okay, sir.
Have you Ayati, तुझा आंसर मिल गया?
Yes, sir.
You got the answer, or you need more explanation?
No, sir. I thought it is a tome kind of thing.
Yeah, very good connection. It is like that, but there is a little difference. Once you see several objects of this type, then you can recognize the difference also. But you are connected it. There is a similarity. Okay, so 7th and 8th object. So we were the
It's a
Ritesh.
statue made up of bronze.
Who is saying that?
Jahan.
Jahan, your guess is perfect. It's a statue made up of bronze.
I think that I'm just guessing. It's a wax technique. It's a mold, I think.
Perfect. Your guess is perfect.
I'm studying
Wax
that.
process. And Ritesh was guessing it's a polished granite. He was very close to it. because it's a lost wax process and made in bronze, and because of its oxidization and its natural patina on it, it is very close to polished granite. But if you say if it is granite, no, then it has a little different tone. This tone resembles, it's a perfect example of visual appearance of nicely natured patina on bronze. Good, but very good guess, Jahan. What is the previous object? Don't you think it's a stone?
Yes, sir, like a
Stone
It
big
is a
stone.
It's a very rough surface. That means it must be very hard stone like basalt, and that is why the carving is not. You see, carving in sandalwood or carving in.
It's not much detailed.
Yeah, it's not much detail, and it's not much detail because carver has a limitation to do the detailing. A few of you have rightly guessed it that the details are not much, and it's because of the limitation in material itself. The stone is very hard, and because of which the carver has a limitation. He can't do much detailed carving on it, and because of which it is like that. Whether this bronze statue, because of the flexibility in lost wax process, we got a lot of flexibility. We can do very detailed work in it, and it's don't look at it like limitations in material, but the material used, again, you have to understand this. In certain region, the certain art forms flourished. Miniature paintings covers right from Kashmir to Delhi, Agra, Jaipur, Rajasthan, Gujarat, Maharashtra, Madhya Pradesh, and till the south. Whereas tankhas flourish in the Himalayan region. Pichwais flourished in Madhya Pradesh and Rajasthan. Patachitras like same region. So every art form has a specific region, and the material available in that region, artisans were using that material. Have you understood? So this basalt means and Ashokan edict, they are from Rashtrakoot period or similar period, and their basalt was available, easily available there, and the artisans or artists are using that material. So it is very important to make these art objects. Artists were using the material which were easily available in that region. It's an important point to note down. Okay, and then our challenge starts when we started preserving these objects, these living objects. Okay, so the image, the picture besides the bronze statue is very famous, Padmapani Bodhisattva. How many of you have seen Ajanta cave paintings and this very famous Padmapani Bodhisattva in Tribhanga Avastha? I highly recommend all of you to visit Ajanta cave paintings and see this fabulous cave paintings. These are tempera on stone. These are monolithic cave paintings from 3rd century, 2nd century AD to 7th century AD. I highly recommend to plan and to visit these cave paintings, and you should see our rich culture at that point, our understanding of visual language, how they depicted the stories. It's a kind of comics. It's a kind of storyboard. There are Buddha stories depicted on these walls. And from material technology point of view, it is a very rough application of ground, very thick mud application of ground on stone, and on which they have painted these images. And if you see the fluency in the line, the delicacy in the line, it is very hard to achieve on this kind of rough surface. I was very much fortunate that I have seen these paintings from like 6 inches of distance or 1 inches of distance. I have examined this painting under ultraviolet light, under infrared light, under microscope. I will show you some images, and those who paint, those who have used or those who have made illustrations. Kathy does paintings, Ayati does paintings, Aditya must have been doing illustrations on the paper, and you just remember your experience while using pencil or using pen on the paper. There is you got very smooth surface on the paper, and फिर भी आपको कितनी डिफिकल्टी जाती है एक फ्लुएंट लाइन ड्रॉ करने के लिए. And these artists have drawn this delicate and fluent line on such a rough surface. You must have seen these monolithic caves for one reason. How must they have thought before carving this? You know, these caves, or all of these caves, are carved from top to bottom. They have started from top, and then they finish the floor. And with these Ajanta cave paintings, you must visit to Kailasa temple or Verud. You must see those caves. And Verud, there are 36 caves from Buddhism. Some caves represent Hinduism, and last 5 caves represent Jainism. Fabulous caves. And I recommend not to miss Kailasa temple, which is 16 number cave, and then last 2 Jain temples, 34 and 35 number caves. Means while talking to you, I have goosebumps because of recollecting that experience. You can spend one day, whole day, you can spend 1 week there, and you will get a lot of information about that period, about our rich heritage. You must visit. Let's come back to our conversation. So this Padmapani Bodhisattva, this is a copy by artist Sayyid Ahmad in 1926. And these copies, Sayyid Ahmad, this artist, made these copies on the request by Hyderabad's Nizam in 1926 to 1928. These 2 years he was living there, and he was doing copies. And the reason to copy these paintings was, suppose these caves deteriorated, these paintings get damaged, these paintings if got destroyed, then we have some kind of documentation in visual form. Now we always document, we always document things. How we document music in digitization, we document in disc, on tape, we record voice on various types of discs or tapes. We document our movements through camera. So we have photographic documentation. In 1926, imagine this is a visual documentation with the help of paintings. This is watercolors on paper. Okay. Then bottom right corner again is a procession of Nizam of Hyderabad, and it's the largest painting we found in the world. This size, we have only 3 paintings in the world, one of which you are seeing, and it's a procession of Nizam of Hyderabad. Again, it's a water-based tempera paintings on cloth. Now, the last object. Can you guess the material? Can you see the hinges of each door? And there are deities in between, and it's resemble like a garbhagruha of a temple. And there are flaps which you can open like this, and this is open. So this is typically from Rajasthan. And this Chitrapat, they used to tell stories of Dashavatara to the villagers. So the stories of Dashavatara, the avatars of Vishnus are depicted on each panel. There is painting behind also. So this is a form of it. So this was the introduction of various materials involved in art objects. Is it really interesting to you?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, it
Yes,
is.
sir.
Yeah.
Okay. Second question: is it going to understand? Is it difficult for you to understand, or you can understand little bit, at least introduction or basics of it? Are you understanding?
It is actually easy to understand.
I didn't
Not hard to
understand the sculpture, the Himalayan sculpture which you.
Okay, good. So let's start viewing the object in from other aspects. I have elaborated much on the material now. I will now talk about the material, but see, this object is an oil paint on canvas. It's a European painting. You can somehow recognize because of the costumes they were wearing, you know, the sea behind, then there is a mountain behind the sea, then there is a human figures, and this is resembles to Roman period, Greek or Roman period, you can Cleopatra, you can recollect Cleopatra or something like that. So basically it's a European painting, and the material is oil paint on canvas. Now interesting is, we'll see different examples, and we will exercise with our eyes. So all 4 pictures are same paintings. Agree? 4 pictures are same painting. So first 3 pictures are the image of whole picture, and bottom right picture is detail of that painting. Now what is the difference between first and second image? In first image you are seeing a plain surface, and suddenly because of something, cracks are visible. Cracks on the paintings are visible. And cracks are visible because there is highlights and shadows are creating with each crack. Are you understanding?
Yes, sir.
Are you understanding the difference in first and second image? In first image, the surface of the painting is very smooth. It's looking flat, nice. But suddenly, because of something in second image, cracks are visible, and because of the shade and light creating at each crack, the cracks are visible, and in third painting, again the cracks are vanished. Cracks are vanished, not cracks are they are visible, but not like in second image. And suddenly there are spots, light spots, like stars. The light is glittering from few areas. Can you guess why is happening with the same painting? See the detail at right bottom corner. You can see those spots which I'm talking about, those like stars. The light is glittering from behind, and the hairlines of cracks. But you can see the hairlines of cracks, but not light and highlights and shadows of cracks like second image. There is a difference. Can you guess what is happening here?
So it's getting old and all the paint is coming off.
Elisa, I can't hear you.
So it's getting old and all the paint is coming off from the paper. I think it is
Not paper, canvas. It's oil painting on canvas. But perfect guess. It is an old painting because of which cracks are developing. So that is a first symptom of oldness. Cracks. It is a first symptom of oldness. It is a first symptom of aging. And paint layer is falling apart. And because of which we can see the losses in paint layer in against light. Light source is behind the painting. That is why the hairlines in cracks are visible, and the loss in paint is also visible. Whereas in second image, the light source is parallel to the surface. You know, if this is a surface of painting, the light source is parallel. It's here, light source is here and parallel to the surface, and that is why you can see the highlights and shadows with each cracks. It is called raking light. Whereas first image is captured in ambient light, where painting is here and light is here. So you cannot see the shadows and highlights. So there are three light sources. First image, light source is here, ambient light. Second image, second photograph, light source is here on top, and light source is falling parallel to the surface of the painting. And in third photograph, light source is here. And because of three different light sources, what information we are getting? It's the painting is old because cracks are visible, and because of aging, the cracks developed. It's old and paint. There is a loss in paint. Right? Now, very quickly, I will say how is it related to the temperature and relative humidity, what we talked in past, how it connects, how material behave with these things. So, see, the paint are oil based. Those are because of oil. Oil doesn't miscible. Oil is oil mixed with water.
No, it doesn't.
No, it doesn't. So the oil-based paint will not behave as sensitively as canvas with relative humidity. That means with the fluctuation in relative humidity, the changes in relative humidity, the canvas is going to expand and contract like wood. We talked about it. But oil paint will not expand and contract like canvas with change in relative humidity. So that means there is difference in ratio of expansion and contraction of canvas and expansion and contraction of pigment layer. Now I will say it again, say this sentence again. There is a difference between expansion and contraction in canvas. This is like this. Canvas is expanding and contracting. The ratio is this. I'm exaggerating, but for your understanding, I'm exaggerating it. And whereas expansion and contraction in oil paint is like this. Understood? Because of which there is a war in two layer. There is conflicts in two layer. Canvas want to expand like this, but the paint are not going to expand like this. So the layer which is strong, that wins. Suppose canvas is strong, paint layer will get crack because paint layer is weaker. Suppose paint layer is weak, suppose paint layer is strong, canvas will get different behavior from back. Paint layer will stable. Now you understood the aging, how this material behaves with temperature and relative humidity, and because of which how it aged, how it get old, and first symptom is cracks and flaking of paint layer, falling of paint layer. You understood? Now we move to second image again. Now I want to discuss only one image in this this second second slide, middle one, this object. What, by observing this image, what can you guess? This is a
the light is coming.
1 minute. This is the same portrait. This is a photograph of same portrait. It's a painting by Pestanji Bomanji. It's oil paint on canvas. This photograph captured in ambient light, you know, ambient light here. And this image is captured in what? Light source is here. The light is traveling from back to front. So now tell me, what can you guess? Okay, I will give you a clue. Tell me which surface will pass through most of the light.
So the shadow
Surface will block that light. Suppose you have two surfaces. One is thin surface, one is thick surface. One is thick surface, one is thin surface. From which surface light will pass more?
The thin ones.
Thin ones. Why?
it's more transparent.
It's
Because
more
it is more
translucent
transparent.
than the,
The layer gets thicker and thicker, it will lose its transparency, no? Suppose layer is this thin, it will be more transparent. But if it gets thicker, it will lose its transparency. It will lose again more transparency and it becomes translucent. As it gets thicker, it will get opaque. So that means now look at this image again and relate this conversation now. Now the darkest area, don't you think the darkest area light is not passing through from that area? And the lightest area, the light is, maximum light is passing through and coming towards the camera. Right? Have you understand?
So, sir, in the dark areas, there is more oil paint than the light areas.
Who is talking? Ritesh?
Yes, sir.
Now I can I can recognize your voice. Okay. So all of you are agree with Ritish. Ritish is saying what Ritish, what you told just now?
There is more oil paint on the dark areas and there is less in the light ones.
Yes. Yes. So the darkest area represents thicker layer of oil paint and the lightest area represent thinner layer of oil paint. Are all of you agree with him?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Krishna, you are not, you have some questions. I think Krishna, Jan, still there.
I don't know whether it's like oil paint. It can be anything like wood or something for border. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's thicker,
Like,
Jahan-
like a canvas, right?
is-
So like cloth will be in a wooden plank or something. So it can be anything. I felt like that.
Yeah, correct. Logically, you are correct. And what, Jahan, what you were saying?
Yeah, I was saying the same logic. The areas which has light coming through must be light, and the areas which is opaque should not. It would be more thicker than the other.
Okay. But see, yeah, you are saying the areas are darker, which are thicker. That is correct. But you are saying the areas are lighter. You mean to say the light tones are used there, or thinner paint layer is there? You are talking about thinness of paint layer, or you are talking about lightness of paint layer?
I was talking about the thinness of the paint layer.
So you mean to say same thing? So that is
Yes,
the same thing. That is the same thing. And Krishna, your logic is also correct, but as we from starting we have seen this as a means I have showed you the portrait in ambient light, which is oil paint on canvas, and then we are seeing this image. So it is clear that it is a oil paint on canvas, and the thinness and thickness of the paint layer. Now you understand the logic behind it. Okay. Now, is there any disturbing things in this image? You see, there are 3 white areas. What can those be?
So I
Yes,
guess
Yes.
What?
Tearing of the paper, like the
Correct.
holes.
Correct. And because of tearing of canvas or holes in canvas, what is happening there?
the light is passing freely more.
Light is passing 100% and reaching to the lens of the camera. So what information we are getting? Again, because of something, now we are saying another symptoms of deterioration of the canvas, which is not related to the weathering condition, but it is something related to the handling of the painting or keeping of the painting. Because of something, because of accident, because of unawareness, this painting was passed through from such a incidents, because of which these tears and these holes are happened. Some accident is happened with this painting. Okay. So again, just exercises with seeing. If you observe keenly, you can gather lot of information, and because of that information, you know the factors because of which this happened. And once you know the factors, you can easily build up your plan to preserve your own objects. You see what I'm trying to explain you. We are seeing the symptoms of deterioration. By seeing the symptoms, we get to know the factors of deterioration. And once we know the factors, we can draw up a plan to preserve our own objects, to preserve our cultural heritage, to preserve these art objects. Means if we know there are tears and holes which happened because of the awareness in keeping those objects or in mishandling of the object, what I will do, I will take care that in future it will not happen. I will keep that painting in safe place. I will see that not any external object will not fall on it. That painting itself not fall. Or I will keep sculptures or small objects in safe custody. Okay, interesting. First is miniature painting, Indian miniature painting, and all of you can recognize the images. It's a Shiva, 5-headed Shiva with an Parvati sitting on a bull, sitting on a Nandi. And second image is captured in ultraviolet light. On the top image, the camera, the light source, you can see blue light. Blue light is a shortwave ultraviolet light, 365 nanometer frequency light. And what we are capturing the image in that light, and the output is like right image. What you can see? What you can see? Can you see every pigment has a different absorption and fluorescence in ultraviolet rays? Like yellow is a light color and white is also light color, and Nandi's pink also light color, isn't it? Yellow is a light color. Shiva's white is also light color, and Nandi's pink also light color. But if you see their fluorescence in ultraviolet light, yellow is suddenly like vibrating. It's glittering. Whereas white color, Shiva's white pigment in ultraviolet light appearing little darker, bluish. And the pink color on Nandi, it is appearing more darker. You see? So in ultraviolet light, we can see the different types of pigments. And it's, you know, this yellow is a typical yellow, Indian yellow. And this type of bright, brilliant yellow, no company in the world, no brand in the world, or no art methodologies flourish in different region in the world can't make this type of Indian yellow, which we Indian make. Some other times I will tell you the story behind this Indian yellow. This time we'll move ahead. Again, example of painting in ultraviolet light. Again, different absorption, but you see, there is a different fluorescence here. There is, let's see the face. Half face, there is no bluish layer in ultraviolet layer, and suddenly half face is covered with light bluish, light greenish tone. You know, then there is this type of dark things. These dark things are typical representation of tears in canvas, and this light green tone is a fluorescence of varnish layer on it. Just remember this, huh? We'll go ahead, but just remember this for your information, but we will move ahead. These are just for example. Now, this is very interesting. This is again miniature painting in ambient light, and this is not photographed in black and white. Please remember, listen carefully. This is not black and white photograph of this painting, but this is infrared imaging of this painting. Now I want to ask you, I want to request you to observe this area carefully. Here and here. And here I will not going to help you. I will not going to give you any clue, but you have to tell me the difference.
So there's a horse there.
Once we see that difference, we will know about the material technology of Indian miniature paintings. This is infrared.
So there's like a horse-like creature in the middle, but in the left side there's
Where? In black and white.
Yeah. in the
yeah,
middle.
yeah. In the middle there's like horse-like creature, but in the left side there's nothing in there.
Okay. Whose observation is this?
So Ritesh,
And anybody else observe this, or have you observed this?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Netra, Krishna, Elisa, Jahan, Ayati, Lisa, all of you and everybody, have you observed this difference?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
No, sir, horse is there on the other side, black and white side.
There is horse, right? And this horse is not visible here. Why is that?
so is it because they painted this picture above the horse picture?
Yes, correct. So what information we get here is many times when artists start with his thoughts, first he draw a sketch in his mind, then he draw that sketch or drawing on the paper, and then few times he change his mind. Artist change his mind, and while doing final painting, he made many changes in it. So, and we can see these changes, this underneath layer with infrared camera. With infrared camera, we can see, we can go under to the underlayer, to the drawing. And we can see very interesting process happened at that time in artist's mind. How he changed his mind step by step. Are there any changes, or artist was very firm from its starting that he made a drawing, and then from till the painting, till finalizing it, he was firm on his first thought, or thoughts are changed. You see, isn't it interesting? It's very interesting. Again, have you seen top images? Can you see top images?
Yes, sir.
Yes, so like an outline for drawing.
Outline.
But
Again,
then,
second image is image in infrared camera. I just told you we can see underneath drawing of by the artist. Can you see here? Can you see here under drawings in second image?
yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
That, and what are those under drawings?
A knife, a sword. A sword in the place of a shield.
Sword above the shield. Huh?
Yes, sir.
And can you see the lines in between the sword and the bull?
Yes, so like
Yes,
animal depiction or something like that.
Means initially his thought was different, but then when he finalized the painting, his thought was different. So these are the very interesting thing. We got to know such kind of observations and this analytical with these analytical instruments. Okay, there are two different materials in three objects. The first object, can anyone guess the material first object?
Brass.
What?
Brass. Brass.
Yeah, it's yellow in color, but
The
it's not.
copper, like that previous statue.
Yeah, but the difference between previous one and this one is that one was half round sculpture, that was embossed sculpture, and that was in copper, because copper has that softness, copper has that physical properties because of which artist can do the embossing. Here it's a loss wax process, and this is a bronze sculpture, and the yellow color is because it's a gilded object, gold gilded object. And why bronze? You can match the tone of bronze object, that dancing, the dancing Krishna, the brownish, blackish brownish color. You can see the same tone where there is losses in gilding. Losses is gilding because of the aging, but the same tone you can see there. So it's a gilded object, bronze gilded object, again from Himalayan region. And the second material is stucco. It's a baked clay. Stucco is different than the baked clay in ceramic, because that is usually gray, black, or red. This stucco, the composition of this stucco is different. It is a composition of calcium, means chalk powder derived from shells. Chalk powder, there can be fibrous material derived from tree, there can be animal glue mixed inside. So it's a composite material of 4 different materials, and then it is baked. It's fibers like that, there can be a grass also, fibrous material. So these both, this head, Buddha head, and this crown Buddha, this crown Buddha, this is Buddha. So these both are stucco. Now the symptom of aging is, let's concentrate on this. Let's talk about this for a few seconds. How this is old object, but this oldness, can you how can you say that this is an old object?
Because of the sediments on it, on the right side it is more dirtier.
Why you're saying that left side is dirtier and not right side is it also can be reversed, no? There can be paint on the right side, and that paint, after removal of that paint which is applied recently, and because of removal that paint, the original layer of old antique object is revealed. It can be like that also, isn't it? But I will say that the guess is correct. The right side is older, dirty, and the left side is clean one. But I want to think little deeper, and you can do it. Or if you doesn't, then when I explain you will realize that it was really simple thing, simple logical thing, or because of which we can say that this is dirty. I will give you 5 seconds, and then I will give you clue, then I will again give you 5 seconds.
Sir, it has sand on it.
Kathy, what you said?
It has sand on it.
It
Mud.
has sand on it. Okay. Okay, sand on it. Can we say dust particle on it?
Yes, sir.
Dust particle on it. Let's say particles on it. Dust particles on it. Dust is everywhere in the atmosphere, and this is indirectly I am giving you the second one. You have seen the dust deposition in your home, in your furniture, on your furniture, on your things in the home. If you doesn't clean your floor, your furniture, dust particle deposit on the surfaces. and you said, oh, it's become dirty, we have to clean it. This is the second clue. Now again, I will give you a few seconds and you have to think the deposition of dust on the surface, and that is going to be the answer. I had already given you third clue.
Is there some parts that have broken, like the carvings? There is some white color something.
No, see, now we are talking about the deposition of dust. You said looking is dirty. Now we said this is looking dirty because of the deposition of dust. Then we took an example at your home. You already know the deposition of dust. If you doesn't clean it, the dust deposits, and you say that, oh, it's become dirty, now we have to clean it. We arrive to this point. Now we have to go ahead from this point. And the answer is, I'm saying you, the answer is in deposition of dust. You have to think of deposition of dust. If you think about it.
So the right side,
The
other side which is clean has been, it's been cleaned, I think.
Yeah, that we know now. Other side is clean, we know. We are talking about dirty side.
Sir, maybe this is a part of a scripture and it was attached to a wall or a ceiling, and now when it has been removed, there are dust particles and they have to clean the other side.
Correct. It is attached to the wall. It is kept on a, let's say, on a pedestal. Okay, agree. And there is a dust deposition on whole object. Now, the half object is cleaned. Forget about that. We are talking about the dirty side of the object. We are saying that there is a dust deposition. Now, see. What is dust? Dust are very small particles in the air. And what is deposition? Because of the gravity, you know gravity, all of you. You know gravity, what
Yes,
happens? We can walk. Water falls down. Heavy things falls down. Newton saw apple and then he thought about the gravitational force. Isn't it? So there is a gravity and the dust is very small particles. We can't see, or big particles we can see from naked eye also. But these are the particles in the air, and these are not only the particles, these are heavy particles in the air. Those are light particles, they move in the air, they will not come down. Only heavy particles in the air, they will come down because of the gravity. Correct? And then they will land on the surfaces. You are clear up till now? It's easy.
Yes, sir.
The heavy particles in the air are coming down and landing on the surface. Very easy. Now there are horizontal surfaces and vertical surfaces. You understand horizontal surfaces and vertical surfaces? Suppose I have this object. Horizontal surface is this and vertical surface is this. So now tell me maximum heavy particles of dust will land on this surface, horizontal surface or vertical surface?
The horizontal one.
Horizontal.
Horizontal.
Why?
Because it's flatter and
Because it's flat. They have space to land. Vertical surface, they will slip. They will go down and down and down. Now, again look at the object. These are horizontal surfaces. Each curve, you see each curve. These are horizontal surfaces. these horizontal surfaces are darkened more than the vertical surfaces. You see eyebrow darkened more because it's diagonal. There is horizontal surface. That means more the horizontal surface, more the deposition, and more the vertical surface, lower the deposition of dust particles. Have you understand? All of you understand the deposition of dust particles, because of which we can say this is a dirty and this become dirty because of the dust in the air. Because we know the dust deposit, because of dust deposition, it is going to look like that when it become older and older and older. Now, interesting thing for your information, you see here a machine instrument, and there is something in my hand, and with which we have cleaned this surface for your interest. This machine produce infrared beam. Infrared beam of 1064 nanometer, and this beam comes from this fiber optic and shoot on the surface, and there explosion happens, and because of that frequency the dust particles goes away from the surface, and this is how this object is cleaned. So this is just for your information. This is ivory object, and you see cleaned area and uncleaned area. So I'm showing some examples of conservation and restoration of objects. You see there are skulls. This object is made up of bone, and one conservator is cleaning it. There are a team of conservator and restorers. They are conserving and restoring this polychrome wood pillars. This conservator is restoring one object made up of porcelain. So this is how in museum our conservation restoration team, we deal with the objects with scientific instruments to analyze the material, its material technology, pigments, these things, and with lot of other tools and chemical. We start with chemical process, cleaning process, reconstruction. This is above is palm leaf, manuscript on palm leaf, and below is manuscript, illustrated manuscript on paper. This is a book, and these small holes, you can see bookworm is attack of bookworm, heavy attack of bookworm on the book. There is a silverfish attack, there is termite. Okay, these are examples of textiles and display techniques. Again, you saw this painting. So I think I will stop here. If we want to summarize, we start from your objects, then you describe your objects, and yourself you said that there are stories, there are emotions, there are memories, and that is why these objects, these are contemporary objects, these objects are with you, these are living objects, but still you understand the importance of the objects. Then we related it to the museum objects, the older objects. Your objects are also going to be older, and these objects are going to be also part of our cultural heritage. But all of you understand the importance of preserving these objects. And then we move to materials to make these objects, and then we see their behavior. We see some analytical analysis of these objects, and we see symptoms of deterioration and the factors related to it. And finally, I show few examples of how in conservation restoration field, we deal with this cultural heritage, our cultural heritage. It's not our village heritage. It's not our city or regional heritage. It's not our state heritage. It's not our country heritage. It's our world heritage. See, this heritage always, you must see this as our world heritage, not our country, not state, not, don't come down, always see widely. Okay, I will stop here.
Sir, you explained that Himalayan sculpture. I didn't understand how the mercury got sublimated in the air. You said something, right? I didn't understand.
Yeah, you know, Ayati, you know, there is, you know, what is melting point? Have you heard about melting point in your school?
Yes.
What is melting point?
Sir, the constant temperature at which a liquid or at which a substance starts melting. Isn't it?
Okay, so what is melting point of ice?
0 degrees Celsius.
Why?
So because
Degree. Yeah, ice change from solid state to liquid state. You know, that temperature is melting point. So like this, every material has its melting point. That's one thing. Now I will explain you in very simple way. So we are talking about the amalgam, mercury amalgam with gold. So what two metals we are seeing?
Sir, mercury and copper.
No, mercury and gold.
Yes, mercury and gold.
No, gold is mixed with mercury. Gold is mixed with mercury. So it's a mixture of two metals.
Yes, sir.
You see what happened? Mercury is always in liquid state. You know our thermometers. Mercury is there in our thermometers. No, it goes up with the temperature because it's in liquid state. Am I right, Satish? Because I'm not from science background. Please correct me if I say any wrong information. Please correct me. So mercury is in liquid state. So what to mixing it? What is next step? We have to melt gold and mix it with mercury. Okay, we melt gold and mix it with mercury. Now still it's a alloy of mercury and gold. And it's in liquid state. So in liquid state, these two metals are applied on the bronze surface. Got it?
Yes, sir.
Surface or copper surface. Now don't confuse between the base support. It can be bronze, it can be copper. If it is embossed, it is copper. If it is lost back process, 3D object, then it is bronze. So the mixture of gold and mercury in liquid state is applied on the surface. Understood?
Yes, sir.
Now they keep this object in furnace, and then in that furnace they create a temperature at which mercury is, its sublimation is when turns from solid to direct gaseous state.
It is known as sublimation.
You know, डांबर की गोली आपने देखी है, पैराडाइक्लोरोबेंजीन, you keep in your cupboard, that
naphthalene balls.
That sublimize, that directly transforms from solid state to gaseous state. Similar things happened here because the melting point of gold is much higher. The mercury sublimizes from solid state to gaseous state. and it turns to solid state because it's not actually solid state, but because of the gold, it comes in solid state. And in furnace, mercury get vanished, and on the surface, gold remains there.
Sir, understood.
Understood? Okay.
I also had a doubt.
Hmm?
Sir, in the painting that you showed us, the light source that is coming from the back, the painting of the lady. So you asked us that if the darker portions that the light does not pass through, if it is because of multiple layers of oil paint, right?
Yes.
Could it also be because of stains and like when it gets old, dust particles and all, they rest on the painting, right? Could it also be because of that?
Yes, you are on right track. Only the thing is what you have to understood, if you're talking about stains or dust, what is that? It is an external layer which is depositing on the surface of the original painting. But there is a layer, no?
Yes, sir.
Or dust layer. This is layer. This is additional layer adding to that surface. That means the layer is becoming more thicker.
Yes, sir.
There it will block the light. So you are absolutely on right track.
Yes, sir.
Good.
Sir, but if there is a stain, the stain will be seen, no?
Stain will
Through
be
the light.
on the front. Means in that case, our job will be much easier. That to conclude the things, we can easily say, okay, this is a stain, because we can see the stain from front. But what you are thinking is again correct, like Elisa is thinking. And you must see your paintings just take your painting and see against light. Do this exercise and you can quickly do this. After this session, you can do this. Yes.
Sir, I had one more doubt.
Yeah, welcome.
Sir, when you take the pigments or see which color or what was there before the paint was applied on the paper, so which waves are passed, infrared or radioactive?
Infrared. Or sometimes you cannot see even with the infrared underneath layer, pigment layer. But you can see it at the edges or at those areas where paint layer is flaking apart. Those areas you can observe underneath the ground layer, gesso layer. You're talking about gesso layer, right? The preparatory layer before paint application of paint. You're talking about that layer, no?
Yes, sir.
So that is more visible, or you can say it confidently where there is loss in paint layer, because you can got more evidences, direct evidences you will get there. In infrared, it is difficult. But in infrared, you will get evidences of underneath drawings. If there is graphite drawing or if there is charcoal drawing, because these particles, graphite, charcoal, they block infrared. And then they reflect as a black line. It doesn't allow to pass. Our X-ray, what bones does? They block X-rays. And we can see the bones.
Okay, sir.